母さん、いつもありがとう。
思い出せない。何か大切なものをなくした気がする。
お母さん。
I'm literally gonna wait for you. And I see you're gonna be like, nah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm just keep watching.
Just subscribe.
And you think the clip gonna cut right here, but it's not, because I'm still waiting for you to click that like button. And the subscribe and the post notification button.
So a couple of years ago, I was watching a Gigak stream, that's my goal, and he was telling us about this new mangaka, this up-and-coming individual who's very wacky and very unique, and told us about how he has this little manga that he has that's doing pretty well, and potentially in the future it could get an anime. And also in telling us this, he told us about this individual's beginnings and how he used to work at a store and used to doodle things on receipts or stuff like that. I'm not sure if it was accurate, it was like years ago. But basically, he was a wacky individual. And I remember thinking to myself, I hope whoever this individual is, I hope they win. Because at the time, I wasn't really that big of a manga reader. So fast forward into the future, well, he showed up again. And the thing is, I immediately recognized him because his manga that Gigak told us about had a very unique name in that it was called Dandadan. And well, usually I wanna at least wait things out and kind of see how things are going, but based on what I'm seeing, I think that dandadan might be anime of the year. If it's able to keep up what's happening, this is an anime that could easily take that. Because in terms of the new anime, it just seems like dandadan is destined to succeed. And it seems like it's been a long time coming. But before I actually start talking about why it's going to succeed and why it is the anime of the year, potentially, I should tell you what the story is about. So basically the story follows Okarun and Momo. Basically, Momo believes in spirits and Okarun believes in aliens. So what happens is one day they happen to cross paths at school and they get into a little argument about what's real and what's not. And ultimately they decide to challenge each other to go to a hotspot for each of their respective beliefs. So Okarun has to go to a place where there could be a spirit and Momo has to go to a place where there could be aliens. And what happens is both of them find what they were looking for. And in that situation, what we get is a very wacky and dark sort of beginning to an anime that leads us to where we're at now. Because on one side, Momo almost got probed, which is pretty dark, but she's psychic now all of a sudden because, you know, she had that power within her. It's a long story. And then Okarun, he had a very interesting experience with the spirits because he basically got offered a drink the natural way, and then also the spirit offered to gobble up his wiener, which for most people sounds like a very awesome time. You know, you get yourself a nice little drink, you get your wiener gobbled. That's a pretty good day.
Daddy, chill.
But it's still not what you think it is, because what happens is he ends up losing his wiener, and then also he loses his balls and he has to find his balls, which has kind of been the thing recently.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Listen, it's weird. We're literally a few episodes in and Okarun is looking for his balls. And this is actually like serious. We're looking for his balls. So this is an anime that you cannot predict where it's going. It's super unpredictable. It's really weird, but yet I'm pretty sure that despite being all over the place, it's one of the most focused anime that you can find. Because this is an anime that does not mind playing the fool. In fact, I mean, it's an anime filled with people looking for their balls, lost wieners, grandmothers who look like they're 20 when they're actually not. It's extremely confusing, especially to me.
I'm in danger.
But it's an anime that is able to seamlessly transition from dark to light whenever it wants to. But what makes dandadan different is that despite it being presented as this goofy and funny and wacky anime, which it is, it offers some of the most darkest stories that you can find from this season. The best example, and I'm going to spoil a bit, is with their first opponent, Turbogranny. Turbogranny, when she is presented to us, she's the person who took away Okarun's wiener and balls, which is very upsetting for a lot of people, and as such, she should be hated. But the thing is, within that story of Okarun finding Turbogranny and Turbogranny possessing him, what happens is on the other side, Momo was in a very bad situation, even though the anime had presented it as a wacky situation where a human meets a bunch of aliens. She was about to be violated, but before that happens, the phone rings and the aliens are kind of put off by this, and all of a sudden, before you know it, Okarun comes out of the phone, and instead of just a normal Okarun, he's possessed by Turbogranny. Now in that moment, Turbogranny just basically bites all of the aliens' wieners and fights them, and so does Momo. And the situation is kind of left as it is, which is cool. But then moving forward, when Okarun has to try and get Turbogranny out of his body because he's basically possessed, we basically see them come up with this goofy and elaborate plan which succeeds, and they get rid of Turbogranny, and you see a bunch of girls fly out of her, and you kind of get confused by that until Momo's grandmother explains that actually Turbogranny is sort of a spirit who looks out for girls, in that she kind of fights or protects women who have went through bad situations. And when Momo's grandmother was telling that story, it clicked. Going back to that situation when Okarun came out of nowhere, because initially we thought that this is the hero moment, you know, Okarun could tell that his friend was in trouble and he used or overpowered Turbogranny, went through the phone and then fought, which could be true, you know, it's your typical moment where the hero shows up out of nowhere and then saves the day. But then on the other side of this story is the possibility that the person who saved Momo from a situation where she was about to be violated was actually Turbogranny, doing what she does best, in that she was protecting a young girl who was about to be in a situation that would alter her for the rest of her life. And she came into that situation disguising it as if she is wild and trying to bite everyone's wieners off, when actually she was saving a girl in danger. You start to realize that maybe this anime has a bit more layers to it. You start expecting that until all of a sudden then they go back to being goofy again, and you're like, oh no, Turbogranny's just this lady who eats wieners. And that's the thing, that story or that possibility of Turbogranny being the real reason of why Okarun was able to go through the phone and fight those aliens is something that's not even really discussed by the characters. As far as they know, maybe that didn't even happen. Maybe we're just making it up, or maybe it did. That ability to tell a story that way was astounding, and this is highlighted in the next story. I'm going to spoil a bit. There's this character that we come across who is obsessed with this girl, and initially we just thought that, well, you know, it's just another character who is honestly there to polish Okarun and Momo, in that this is now their first opponent where Okarun can kind of control himself and Momo is learning more and more about her abilities, so she's basically just a test dummy, only to find out that she would offer up one of the most darkest and painful stories of the season. Because what we saw and what we learned is that the spirit who had kidnapped this girl is basically a mother who cares. She was a single mother who would do anything for her daughter. And I mean anything. She would work any job, even if it meant selling her body or working as a cashier or cleaning floors or whatever. She would do it because it was for her daughter. And it's just heartbreaking to watch, because later within the episode something happens and she loses it. And watching that entire situation break down, and mind you, the story was borderline just told with music. It was just visuals, not too much talking, but you understood everything. Especially, for example, if you're an individual who has a single parent, whether it's a father or mother, you understand the things that they go through. Even if you have both parents, you understand the things that they go through that sometimes they don't show you, just to provide and make sure that you're happy. And it was so jarring to see that experience that I couldn't even look at it. I had to force myself to watch it because it was so awkwardly real and painful. And to see Dandadan do that with a so-called random character who I initially thought was going to be a person who's used to polish these up-and-coming characters really broke me. And it's this that kind of really highlights how amazing Dandadan is at telling stories, because you go into these situations situations thinking that you know what's gonna happen, thinking that it's your typical sort of shonen, it's just wacky, it's just funny. And then this anime shows you a side to it that leaves you understanding the dark realities of the situations. You can't really get a good vibe from this anime. You don't know where it's going until it decides to show you where it's going. We have a bit of an understanding a bit more about spirits, and yet there's still aliens, of which so far the alien interactions have been these very cold and emotionless, non-story type of situations, of which I don't mind because, well, that's kind of what you would expect from an interaction with an alien. I don't think you're gonna now learn a sad story about it, or maybe, who knows. But the possibilities are endless for this anime, and the creativity of which it possesses is equal to the potential that it could have. It can go anywhere, but yet the ceiling is so high, and it seems like this anime enjoys exploring the potential and playing with it. But with the good has to come the bad. And well, the anime's biggest strength could potentially be its biggest weakness. Because the anime is so weird and wacky at times, you can be lulled into believing that there won't be a payoff for what you're seeing. So with them basically chasing his balls the entire episode, the relevancy of the story of turbogranny, if you felt it, kind of disappears because now you're back to being childish and goofy. And I think that a lot of people will fall into that trap with this anime. I saw, based on how a lot of people received the first episode, they didn't believe that the anime would have substance because it was all over the place. And the selling point of dandadan is that it's all over the place, but I think that people easily perceive the anime as just being more of a gimmick than an anime with substance. Besides that, there's nothing really negative to say about this anime. In terms of the animation, I think that the animation is one of the best of this year. It's beautiful, it's amazing. I never heard of this studio before this, but they're doing an amazing job of really depicting and staying true to the vision of what the manga is trying to tell us. And then in terms of the music, the opening is part of the anime, the ending, I mean Zutomae ate. I'm biased, but she ate. But it's pretty much got a lot of things that you'd want. It's got good animation, amazing stories, it's pretty unique, it's got really good music. And also the other part that I usually don't mention too much, it's easily accessible. If you have a Netflix, you can watch dandadan. Besides that, I think that after this recent episode, it's firmly set the bar really high, and I think that it's not gonna drop the bar. So it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how this anime ends, and I'm really excited to talk about it when it eventually does end. But so far, I think that dandadan has really placed itself in a position where a lot of people will have to pay attention to it. And that person who I heard about a couple of years ago, his vision is coming true. And you can see that they've worked really hard to make this vision become a reality. And based on what I just told you, the thing that would be the most least surprising about this anime is that it could end up being anime of the year.